I mean, I guess my main question, I was in Iowa City for this Iowa-Michigan State game this past weekend, and I don't know what the future for Jonathan Smith is. It was a weird game. I guess my biggest question that we haven't addressed on this show, Mark, is why are teams still kicking to Caden Wetjen? I mean, I'm serious. I don't. It makes zero sense. And Michigan State did this little pooch punt from the quarterback about a half a dozen times, and it was smart football. But the 3 times they decided, we're just going to kick to them.
Yep, that paid the price the game
every time.
Yep.
And it was interesting post game with Don, and I've never gotten Coach Patterson to even. He's at least entertained the possibility, but after Saturday, and of course, Caden broke the all-time record for most return touchdowns in Iowa history. I just asked Don, I said, you got to at least have him in the conversation with Timmy Dwight.
With Tim Dwight, yeah.
I mean, he's got to be. And Steve, you watched Tim Dwight play.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't, and I didn't watch him live, right? But we know the stats, we see the tape. I don't know how you can be any better than what Caden Wetjen has been. So for Iowa fans that haven't seen, that didn't live back during the Timmy Dwight era, just kind of give us a comparison since you watched that Hayden Fry era as well.
Well, I mean, straight ahead speed. I don't know that I've ever seen a faster white guy than Tim Dwight, at least not on a football field, in terms of just burst and from point of entry of the ball to initial burst. I mean, that was just, superhero stuff. I mean, we saw it in a Super Bowl, for example. I mean, he was the old car, ads, does 0 to 60 in, so many, minimal seconds. And that was Tim Dwight. I would say the young man we're talking about now has more escapability and maneuverability than Tim had. Now, you could argue that Tim was so damn fast, he didn't have to do that. All right. And that, it's funny if you go back to that 97 team, his senior year, that had him and Tavian Banks both on that team. And those were both guys that were daylight guys, that if there was daylight, they were gone. And with instant acceleration. And that's why Tim was able to defy a lot of demographics and make so much money in the National Football League. When you look at Dwight and then all the guys in Cooper DeJean and now now what we saw on Saturday, I mean, if I'm an opposing coach and I see a white guy back there to return a punt for Iowa, I'm just putting it out of bounds. I'm just going to assume the guy is a freaking, is a future decathlete, CrossFit all-star. He's going to be on reality TV when his 40s winning the CrossFit, games. And I'm just kicking the damn thing out of bounds and telling Iowa, you know what, I'll give you 10 yards of hidden yardage. So now instead of driving 70 yards, you got to drive 60 yards. But I'm going to make you do that 4 or 5 times rather than that you have punt returns 4 or 5 times that set you up into my, side of the field every single freaking time. I don't understand it at all.
Riley Moss was not a great punt returner, but he
was also a fast white guy. Yes,
he was a phenomenally fast white guy. Yeah,
yeah. I will say this: I think that also though speaks to kind of the more meta thing with Iowa football. And it's been several years since I've had a meaningful conversation with Kirk, but I used to know him very well in my previous professional life, and loved him to death. And I would think, and it's precisely because he's a dinosaur, and it's precisely because in some degree the game has passed him by. But in all the right ways, meaning the game has not passed Kirk by in the way that it has other coaches who schematically cannot keep up. The game has kind of passed Kirk by in the kinds of ways that make us question the future of the game, if what I'm saying makes sense. And I do think when you're at Iowa, and maybe you've heard me say this before, talking Iowa and Iowa State or programs like that, you need a niche. You need an outlier. What makes you different? The dumbest thing Wisconsin did, and I said this to Mark when Fickell came in and went to that air raid offense, Mark, you'll remember, I told you that very first spring, it reminded me of watching Rich Rod out there trying to run the zone read with Stephen Threet, Nick Sheridan at Michigan. Why would you abandon 30 years of what has been successful? Keep doing it, right? And the Wisconsin program in our lifetimes may never recover from that. I mean, they're on their 3rd roster alteration in the 4 years under Fickell now. What Iowa has is an outlier. It's an old style college program with college program values and a coach from that era. And because of the way the game has moved past Kirk, schematically, they still do things. Phil Parker is still out there befuddling quarterbacks and offensive coordinators every single week. All right. So it's not that schematically the game has passed Iowa by. It's that systemically it has in all the ways that we think the game is existentially threatened. And so that throwback look, it's like, hey, I was just at Wrigley 2 weeks ago for Michigan, a very old stadium, but it doesn't look outdated. It's old, but it's vintage. It's old in all the right ways. I went to the Rose Bowl 2 years ago, same thing. It's old, but in all the right ways. Okay. And I would say the same thing about Iowa. And if there's a cautionary tale to look at Wisconsin and look at Nebraska, we got to get the next guy, the guy that can take us to the next level, and maybe a lack of some self-awareness there. I would let Kirk coach there. I mean, if Kirk puts in his will, that he wants to go full Joe Diffie, prop me up beside the jukebox when I die, drag him out there, man, cadaver and all right, and make him the coach. I'd hold on to that. There's a formula there, man, and I would hold on to it as long as I possibly could. And they know they've got to upgrade the quarterback. They thought they did it this year. I mean, no one in their right mind would have predicted Mark Gronowski would have so many such difficulty completing a downfield pass for an entire year, given his resume at the FCS level. So they know they need to upgrade there, and there's options to do that, and that's where you can maybe spend your NIL money. But I would actually urge Iowa, for as long as possible, do not quote unquote modernize. You have a niche, you have an outlier that makes you different, that makes teams have to prepare for you differently. And I think as long as you can have that, you have a chance to be successful.